What's going on, Dynasty Leaguers? Welcome into another episode of Drafting Lessons, the DLF TV show, where I grab a guest every single week and we do a Dynasty startup or Dynasty rookie mock draft. So because it is still the beginning of May, it's still rookie draft season, we're going to be doing two more SUPERFLEX rookie mock drafts today. And my guest today, I had him on earlier this season for a Dynasty startup. It's the great Curtis Patrick from RotoViz and Dynasty Command Center. Curtis, how's it going, my man?
It's going great, Addison. Thanks for having me back. I'm really excited to do a SUPERFLEX rookie mock for sure. A lot of my leagues, I draft rookies before the NFL draft, so I don't even know that I've had a real rookie draft yet, post NFL draft. So been certainly tracking ones that my friends are involved in and industry drafts, and done a lot of exercises like this. But man, I think it was really interesting, and I think there's a lot of great targets in the first probably round and a half. So can't wait to see what spot I draw.
Yeah. So real quick, so what is the I guess the allure? And I mean, do you chase the leagues that do rookie drafts before the NFL draft? Like, why do you have so many of those leagues and not after?
I just think it's an awesome format because it's like a bridge between a Devy format and a traditional Dynasty format. So like, it forces everyone to be engaged on, who are the people in the class, form some opinions before we have solved for draft capital and landing spot. So it's kind of a way to test almost your scouting a little bit, but more from a fantasy scouting perspective, obviously. So it just happens that the group of friends that I tend to play with, same 4 to 6 guys that end up in every league that I end up starting up. That's just become our favorite format. So have done a few of those, and I've certainly done, I think, 3 startups this spring where either rookie picks or rookies were included. So definitely fully on top of what the rookie value is relative to the vets, and I think that will probably play out here with some of my selections today.
Awesome. Yeah, that is pretty cool. I've never actually done an actual rookie draft before the NFL draft. I've always thought that was interesting. And it seems like that could actually like really hurt you if you're not good.
Yeah, it absolutely can. So in one league, I drafted Clyde Edwards at 110, because this draft occurred in March. And so, I hit the lottery on that. But, there's been years, like 4 years ago, I think when one of the leagues started up, maybe 5 years ago, I drafted Kieris Garrett in the second round. It can certainly go either way. It's fun and it's a learning experience.
Yeah, that is awesome. So today we're just going to be doing 2 4-round SUPERFLEX rookie mock drafts. The first one is going to be out of the 3 spot. So we're still going to be kind of in that top tier. And we'll see what falls to you at 3. And then the second one will be out of the 9 spot. So we'll get a completely different round of players there. And it's going to be a lot more interesting, I think, to see who comes along, at the 109 and the 209 specifically. So
Sure.
All right. So we'll just get right into it here. We'll start off with the first one out of the 1.03, and we'll just get right into it. All righty, Curtis. 103. I feel like this is pretty stereotypical for a SUPERFLEX. 101 went Joe Burrow, and 102 went Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So I think you might have a decision here. I'm not sure, but Tua and Jonathan Taylor are both there at the 103, as well as all the other players not named Burrow and Edwards-Helaire. So your pick here, 1.03. What are we looking at?
Well, it would be the same pick that I would make at 101, and it's Jonathan Taylor. So there's no hesitation for me here. I'm not considering trading back if this is a real draft. I am absolutely just licking my chops and counting my lucky stars that the most talented prospect in the entire NFL draft for fantasy purposes fell into my lap at 103. Really, really excited about this. I can't lose this draft now. I've already won this draft.
Yeah. It seems like anybody in the top 3 picks that you grab is really, just a win at 1.03, right? Whoever kind of falls to you there is going to be a win. But you said that Taylor was your 101, anyway, and that's true in SUPERFLEX as well too. You would take Taylor over Burrow as well?
Correct. So it's just rooted in this belief that Taylor isn't really being fully appreciated for the type of prospect that he is. I think that we've grown accustomed to, we had Ezekiel Elliott a couple years ago, and then obviously Saquon Barkley as one of the most talented running back prospects of all time. And even McCaffrey to a lower degree was kind of in this tier. But, year after year after year, when good running backs are entering the NFL, we can become numb a little bit to just the quality or the caliber of Jonathan Taylor. I mean, his speed score is through the roof. He has bell cow back size, averaged 2,000 yards, more than 2,000 yards from scrimmage 3 years in a row, and a Power 5 conference at a huge school that everyone knows was going to pound the rock when they went up against him. And, I just think that Taylor's not being fully appreciated. I'm definitely sensitive to the landing spot for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And, I think that he hit the lottery. I've certainly moved him up in my rankings. And I think Joe Burrow is great too. I mean, the scouts seem to be in love with him. I got to watch the early parts of his career, here in Columbus when he was still a Buckeye. But I just think that you can buy the type of quarterback production that Burrow is going to give us in the first couple of years. He adds a little bit with his legs, but not enough with his legs that he's going to be. I don't even think he's going to be a Dak Prescott level Konami code quarterback. And so, I see him slotting more into the range of like, a Jared Goff or, probably like a Jared Goff or even a Baker Mayfield, as he continues to develop. It's going to be that type of quarterback where we get maybe a couple 100 yards, 200 yards, and a couple lucky touchdowns. I don't think we're going to get 600 yards and 5 or 6 touchdowns. And so therefore, I just don't think the fantasy production is going to be special enough to outweigh what I'm going to get relative to positional value at running back. So I want that elite production that I think Jonathan Taylor is going to give me, or even Clyde Edwards-Helaire for that matter. I would take either back in front of Burrow in this format. Okay.
All right. So the only other question I have about Jonathan Taylor, and this is really just something that I haven't discussed with any of my guests about, since the draft or even really before the draft. So Jonathan Taylor, we know that he wasn't necessarily known for catching the ball out of the backfield at Wisconsin. I mean, they kind of made an effort to get him more receptions in his final year than they did his sophomore and freshman year. You can see that in his stats. But then he lands with the Indianapolis Colts, and then, they have Phillip Rivers as well too. And it just kind of seems like a lot of people are really into Rivers and the Colts using Nyheim Hines, similar to Austin Eckler at the Chargers, versus Jonathan Taylor here in more of a Melvin Gordon role. But nobody's really talking about how Melvin Gordon had a boatload of receptions over the past few years. Maybe not his rookie year. I mean, Gordon's rookie year was kind of down in general. But do you have any concerns as far as Jonathan Taylor in terms of his ultimate ceiling and potentially not hitting that because his reception total and his receiving volume might not be there?
No, I don't. I just think the ceiling for Taylor looks different than the ceiling for Edwards-Helaire. I mean, Edwards-Helaire isn't going to be a back that runs it 280 times. He's going to run it maybe 160 to 180 times and add on the receiving production, which is great. It's just going to come a different way. I think Jonathan Taylor is absolutely going to have a total lock on all the goal line rushing, and would expect him to have 80 to 90% of the rushing touchdowns there in Indianapolis, certainly after his first year, once the teams rid themselves of Marlon Mack. But, a player like Ezekiel Elliott has shown that he can be, and achieve elite dynasty value without being a guy that catches 70 or 80 balls, 50, 60 balls. I think that's range of possible outcomes for Jonathan Taylor. I mean, the team started to split him out a little bit and tried to feature him in new ways in 2019. And, he had 20 plus receptions after really not being used in the receiving game at all in his first 2 seasons. So, and he even demonstrated this at his pro day. I mean, I don't know if you had a chance to watch, that workout, but they actually spent a lot of time having him run some routes from the slot, run some out routes. I don't think it's just going to be dump offs and Texas routes all day with him. I think he has the ability, shorter routes, but he can make people miss in space. He's not going to run the downfield stuff like McCaffrey and wheel routes and stuff like that. But if you look at even what Jordan Howard did a couple years ago, I mean, Addison, sure. 30, 40 receptions when you get all of the rushing work is plenty to be a viable RB1. And I just think Jonathan Taylor is so much better than a player like Jordan Howard. that we're going to see something more like an Ezekiel Elliott style fantasy portfolio for him. And I mean, that's great. I feel absolutely awesome about getting that at the 103 here.
Absolutely. I share all of your opinions as well on all that. I just wanted to hear it from you and let the listeners know, how you feel about Jonathan Taylor, and maybe, suppress some fears or worries about that. So 2.03, we're on the clock again. DeAndre Swift, Tua, Justin Herbert, Cam Akers, Henry Ruggs, J.K. Dobbins, Jerry Jeudy, Justin Jefferson, and CeeDee Lamb rounded out the rest of the first round. And then Jordan Love and T. Higgins were here at the first 2 picks of the second round. So 2.03, we are looking at Jalen Reagor, Keyshawn Vaughn, Denzel Mims, Michael Pittman, Laviska Shenault, Brandon Ayuk, Zach Moss. There's a few other rookies down here too, but I feel like I know where you're going. So 2.03, where are we headed here?
Oh my gosh. I just want this to be a real league. I'm going to get, 2 of my, really 2 of my top 5-6 players. So Jalen Reagor is my pick here. He is a top 5 rookie for me in non-Superflex, and I think he's still probably in my top 6 to 7 in Superflex. He got the smash landing spot. He really is not going to have anything in his way of being, the wide receiver 1 in terms of target volume as early as his second season. I don't think that Alshon Jeffrey or Deshaun Jackson poses much of a threat to him blooming past his rookie season, and he adds an element to the offense that kind of fits in between the two. Deshaun Jackson, of course, is going to be used to take the lid off of the defense, and Reagor has some of that to his game. But I think at this point in their careers, probably going to be able to add more in terms of yards after the catch as well. So I think he's exactly what the Eagles wanted. They had an opportunity to take Justin Jefferson as more of a chain mover or slot receiver, and I think that they know that they needed an alpha. They needed a matchup problem, a yards after the catch problem for opposing defenses to worry about. And just really excited about this landing spot there. So I got a player that I loved that had the young breakout age, had the athletic measurables, and then he got the smash landing spot with the draft capital. It just all kind of came together for Jalen Reagor. And at 203, after getting Jonathan Taylor at 103, I am I'm in love. I'm in love. If this would be my ideal scenario in a real draft. So thanks for those module 4 to me.
Yeah, this is a pretty disgusting start overall. I mean, I love Jalen Reagor as well too. I thought it was fantastic that he went to the Eagles. There's not really much more that I can say that I or yourself or any other analyst has said about Jalen Reagor. It's just fantastic. And at 2.03, I don't even know why he's still there. I would have taken him up before Henry Ruggs, but maybe before Jeudy, Jefferson, Lamb, like all these guys like this. This is where he should have been, up in the top, the back end of the first, and instead 2.03. That's just a money pick right there, and not really much more that we can say about that pick. So we'll just move on to the third round here. The rest of the second went Denzel Mims, Keyshawn Vaughn, Michael Pittman, Jalen Hurts, Antonio Gibson, Brandon Ayuk, Bryan Edwards, Antonio Gandy-Golden, and Laviska Shenault. And then A.J. Dillon and Zach Moss were the 2 running backs picked at the top of the third round. So 3.03, according to these rankings, we got Chase Claypool, KJ Hamler, Anthony McFarland, Darrington Evans, Cole Kmet here as well, Devin Duvernay, Van Jefferson, Tyler Johnson, Eno Benjamin, Joshua Kelly. Jacob Eason is down here for quarterbacks as well, and Lynn Bowden, just a bunch of all these other players here. So 3.03 here, Curtis. What are we looking at to pair with your already amazing start?
Yeah, I'm going to take KJ Hamler here. He's about 2021 in my rankings for Superflex and more value. AJ Hamler. Yep. And so, landing with the Broncos, I think people are initially worried about his ability to get real volume in terms of being fantasy viable. But I think that's good. I think it suppresses his draft capital and rookie drafts a little bit to a place where he became a value instead of a player that we would have been tempted to reach for. Really only had the one killer year to speak of at Penn State. He does add some in the return game, which is a way for him to prove that he is deserving of touches. This happened over and over and over and over again in years past of players earning more of an offensive feature role after kind of shining in special teams. And so I think that's going to be a possibility for Hamler there. And, I know some people, TJ Calkins, who also is with me at RotoViz, Nope. He's likened KJ Hamler to an Antonio Brown style player. Thinks he has some of those same traits and actually believes that he's the long-term number one in Denver. So
Wow.
I don't think that's a prevailing opinion. I'm not hearing a lot of people say that, but I think it does underscore the level of talent of the player a little bit. And so in the third round, I feel like I'm getting something a little bit more than a dart with Hamler. Would feel really good about it, especially in best ball, in Dynasty best ball. Other picks that I considered here look like a couple guys that went off the board. Joshua Kelly was a consideration. I don't think Austin Eckler will grow his role, certainly. So even if he would were to reprise everything he did in 2019, there's a lot of touches available in Los Angeles. And now the team's come out and said that they're going to involve 2 or 3 backs. Anthony McFarland's really interesting with James Conner's injury history and being in a walk year. Darrington Evans, that's more of a play for 2021 or an unlikely Derrick Henry injury. I think all 3 of those backs would have been realistic picks at this spot, but I'm just going to take the player that I believe has the most talent out of that group.
So apparently I need to step up my KJ Hamler love if TJ's out here throwing opinions out like that in terms of Antonio Brown, like for the Broncos, their long-term wide receiver 1. That's really interesting. And I mean, I've had the comparisons out there where, when I have to defend KJ Hamler's size, I say that Antonio Brown was only like 1 inch and 8 pounds more than KJ Hamler. T.Y. Hilton is in that range as well too. Deshaun Jackson, like these are all players that, they have the skill set. John Brown is another one as well there too, that is in that mold. And, I, as a Penn State guy and a KJ Hamler fan, I wasn't too thrilled with Denver in terms of a landing spot because I wanted him to go somewhere where he could be more of the feature guy. I would have been a lot more comfortable with it if they hadn't have taken Jerry Jeudy in the first round as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because that would have just hit him at being number 2 across from Cortland Sutton would have been fantastic. I just have concerns in terms of playing time, but I am in agreement with you there where, he's going to make a mark on special teams. And if that's, that's going to be his quickest road to snaps and actually playing a lot, that's going to be the path for him there too. And my real question to you is, so KJ Hamler is there too, but another wide receiver, Chase Claypool, I'm just interested in your opinion on him because he was another 2nd-round pick and went to the Steelers, the wide receiver team that likes to draft and develop these guys into quality starters. And so I'm just really interested to hear why you went KJ over Claypool when it seems like Claypool has a faster and easier track to, snaps and opportunity on the Steelers than KJ does on the Broncos.
Man, I'm not sure I agree with you on that. I mean, the Steelers have Juju, Deontay Johnson, and James Washington. All 3 of those guys have defined and entrenched roles. Now I know Claypool brings a size, speed element that none of those other guys have. They really haven't had this probably since Martavis Bryant left town in terms of an outside vertical threat. But I think he's a little bit going to be typecast in that role. And as long as Ben Roethlisberger is there, at least for this year, and I expect him to maintain that chemistry that he's already created, in particular with Juju Smith-Schuster and James Washington. It really interesting. He hasn't really had an opportunity to play with Deontay Johnson yet. And so, we'll just have to see. I think either way, you're looking at 2021 for either one of these guys to pop. And, with Denver still kind of finding its offensive identity and adding so many new faces to the pool all at once, it's range of possible outcomes that the Hamler just fits better in their offense than, really Sutton's the only entrenched player, right? And so when we talk a little bit about this dynamic with what the Raiders did and Bryan Edwards and Henry Ruggs, and, I think that it's not insane to think that Bryan Edwards could be the better fantasy asset than Henry Ruggs. Sure. And now it's not like an apples to apples entirely when we transition over to Denver and talk about Hamler and Jeudy. But if Drew Lock, prefers to keep those balls on the outside a little bit, or wants to really push it downfield, Hamler might be a better fit for some of that than Jeudy, who I think is going to be mostly relegated to slot work in that offense. So, we just got to see. I just think that KJ Hamler is a better player than Chase Claypool, and Chase Claypool is more of an athletic freak, which is fine. But I'm going to take the player that already has some of those nuanced skills down.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you in terms of KJ is a better athlete and player than Claypool. My whole thing is I think Claypool's now the wide receiver, an X or a Z, and wait, did I say that right?
He's going to be an X. He's going to be split. He'll be a split end there for sure.
For sure, an X, and they're moving Juju back into his natural role in the slot.
Yeah.
And I'm not a James Washington guy. I cannot for the life of me understand James Washington at all. And I don't think Ben is all that much of a James Washington guy. He didn't really like to target him a whole lot, before 2019 as well, too. And then obviously, last year, Washington kind of broke out, but that was with all the backups. So I don't know what to make of James Washington with Ben Roethlisberger. And I think Deontay Johnson slides in as well, too, very nicely. And I think Claypool just comes in as this, this big-bodied Martavis Bryant kind of player who Ben has shown that he will target in the past before. And, that's just my opinion. I think Claypool is a faster track to more significant snaps than KJ Hamler does, but KJ is a better player. So that's, that's a really interesting debate right there. And I'm glad we were able to talk about that, because I was just kind of curious on why you went KJ over Claypool, because a lot of people have Claypool up higher.
Yeah, I think they're in the same tier for sure. And so, I might be in the minority. I haven't seen enough rookie draft boards, how they've played out to really see that. And to your point of Ben not having, a great rapport with James Washington, it's more just about familiarity and reps. But you're absolutely correct that production really wasn't there. I'm staring at the RotoViz AYA app right now, and I'm looking at Ben Roethlisberger for the 2018 season. And I've got it set to look at every receiver that he gave at least 30 targets to. The worst adjusted yards per attempt with any of those relationships, any of that battery, was with James Washington, just 5.67 adjusted yards per attempt. In contrast, Juju's up over 8, and Vance McDonald almost 9. So I think, and it's not a situation like with Antonio Brown had poor AYA in 2018, but it's just because he got pummeled with volume. James Washington only had 45 targets from Roethlisberger in that season. So you might be onto something there in terms of chemistry, but we'll just have to wait and see it play out.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll move on here. Last pick, 4.03 of this draft. The third round went Darrington Evans, McFarland, and Joshua Kelly. Then Chase Claypool, Van Jefferson, Devin Duvernay, Donovan Peoples-Jones, LaMichael Pirine, and Lynn Bowden. And then Cole Kmet and DJ Dallas at the top of the fourth here. So 4.03, we're looking at Tyler Johnson, Benjamin, Adam Troutman, Jacob Eason, and Jake Fromm as the quarterbacks. Devin Asiasi, Albert O, Quintez Cephas, Bryson Hopkins, the Bryants. A whole bunch of these other dart throws kind of down here. So last pick of this draft, who do we want to round out this draft here with?
I'm going to take Adam Troutman. I think he will have a role this year in the red zone, and I think the team will move on from Jared Cook following that. It'd be a gift if we got any additional years from Drew Brees after 2020, but they seem really excited about Troutman. And in a weak tight end class, I think he's really the only player to be actually excited about earning a meaningful NFL role early on in an offense that we care about. I think Cole Kmet could also earn early opportunity in Chicago, but I'm really just not excited about their quarterback situation. I'm not sure if Matt Nagy is long for this world, if they'll give him a chance to develop another quarterback. And so Troutman at an extreme discount in comparison to Cole Kmet feels like an excellent dart throw with starter upside at this point in the draft.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say about Adam Troutman. I think you hit everything there. And I mean, we're talking about dart throws here, right? Like I'm thinking about all these other players, maybe going a quarterback here as like a later player, but you don't want to necessarily take a shot on a guy who might not have a fantastic opportunity. Thinking about Eason and Fromm, last week with Ray, Jacob Eason was kind of his guy that he looked for in the later third, early fourth as well, just as, a Phillip Rivers, kind of backup shot with potential to be the starter in Indianapolis because this is Superflex. But yeah, Troutman, I mean, that team will probably want to get younger here, as they move away from Drew Brees. They're going all in right now, but then, they got to look beyond it. And if he fits into that mold of being on that younger team and playing behind Jared Cook now, but then taking it over later. There's not very many better spots that you could be in terms of an offense for a tight end than New Orleans, even if that's a post Drew Brees New Orleans.
Sure. And I think it's interesting to bring up Jacob Easton there. So I'm just going off my own rankings here, and I've got Adam Trotman 32 for SUPERFLEX. Jacob Easton would have been 35. So I think in the next exercise, if Easton is to fall to 4-9, he could potentially be a pick for me there, unless Trotman's still on the board.
Right. So let us move on then to the next set of 4 rounds here. This is out of the 9 spot. Again, SUPERFLEX, all that fun stuff. So we're just going to bounce right into it and see where we're at with the 1.09, with the top 8 picks being Joe Burrow, Tua, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, your boy, went all the way at 105. Jerry Jeudy, Cam Akers, and then J.K. Dobbins. So 1.09, Justin Herbert, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Henry Ruggs, Jalen Reagor's there, Keyshawn Vaughn, Mims, Pittman, Higgins, all those second-tier wide receiver guys. So 1.09 here. This is a completely different set of rookies and players to talk about. What are we looking at here to start off this draft?
My pick here would be Jalen Reagor, because I'd still be, he's still available, and I've got him ranked, above these guys. But let's just talk about some other players, so we get some analysis. I think Justin Jefferson certainly deserves consideration, with Adam Thielen's age, and the team being so excited about moving on from Stephon Diggs, and that offense supporting really the passing game really does run through the wide receivers, at least it has in years past. And so I think Jefferson is certainly on the short list of receivers who will lead that group in rookie production, and as early as 2021 could be the number 1 receiver in the Vikings offense. So still going to take Reagor here and stick to my board, because throw my boys as a mock draft. But I think you really have to think hard about Reagor versus Jefferson. If you got them close, those are the only two players that satisfy this really unique set of criteria, and why I'm so excited about them, kind of at the low end of that first tier wide receivers. They both broke out at age 19, and they both declared early. And I think it's so hard to find players that break out early and declare early, and then have, that dominator rating truly being up over the 30%. It's just so rare to see that at age 19, but both of these guys did it.
Yeah. I mean, again, Jalen Reagor would have been my pick as well here too. So there's no argument there for me. It's just, CeeDee Lamb would also be, I think, an interesting conversation piece as well there too. Justin Herbert would definitely be in this range just because it's SUPERFLEX, but I would also, like you, take the wide receiver instead. If one of the running backs would have landed there, do you have any of the running backs, or all 5 running backs, I guess, of the top 5 ahead of Reagor?
No, I don't have Akers in front of Reagor. So but I do have the other 4. Well, I've got the other 3 clearly in front of them, and I've got Reagor and Swift at 5-6 in my ranking. So in that tier for sure. But if I see Dobbins there, if Dobbins had been available, he would have been my pick. But of course, he went 1 pick in front of me. So I think Dobbins landed in an absolutely phenomenal spot, for his skill set with the option style run offense and all the shotgun work that's done there. I mean, really running out of the shotgun the majority of the time. It's exactly what he did at Ohio State, and just, truly excelled in that style of offense. So I think the Ravens knew what they wanted. They got the guy that's the perfect fit there. And Dobbins is really going to thrive in Baltimore. Might fall victim to some receiving share, because of some of the scrambles that we're going to get from Lamar Jackson. Instead of dumping it off, he'll try to do it with his legs a little bit. So I think, running backs that are paired with a quarterback like that typically will suffer. But he's going to give us enough other production. I'm not really too worried about it. I think it'd be a shock if he's not like a 1,100 yard rusher with 300 or 400 receiving yards year in, year out. So pretty excited about Dobbins.
All right. Yeah, good deal. So 2.09 here, moving into the second round. So Herbert, Keyshawn Vaughn, and CeeDee Lamb were the end of the first. And then we went Justin Jefferson, Henry Ruggs, Denzel Mims, T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, A.J. Dillon, Jalen Hurts, and Brandon Ayuk there as the first 8 picks in the second round. So 2.09, we were looking at players like Laviska Shenault, Zach Moss, Brian Edwards, Antonio Gibson, Claypool and Hamler both there as well too. Anthony McFarland, Darrington Evans, Cole Kmet, a bunch of these players who all went in the third round of the last draft. So 2.09 here. What are we looking at to pair with Jalen Reagor?
All right, so kind of in this range in SUPERFLEX, I'm pretty excited about trying to land one of the top receivers still, and I feel like hold on, I got a prop that we can use for this. I feel like Laviska Shenault has weird ADP. I think he's got weird ADP. This is a player. This is a player that he's multifaceted in his skill set. He can run the ball. He can be deployed exactly like Deebo Samuel was last year for the 49ers, except he's even more dynamic as a ball carrier than Deebo Samuel. Breaking off long runs for touchdowns. He can finish. He's a home run hitter. He's got size. Jacksonville doesn't really have any competition for number 2 in terms of target market share there behind DJ Chark. So I think Laviska Shenault, why can't he get 80 or 90 targets and 20 or 30 carries this year? I think he could be really exciting and actually be fantasy viable, like in a flex capacity. And I think he's probably top 50 startup pick next year for sure. And so wow. pretty excited to get him there.
Wow. So I'm not disagreeing with you in terms of 80 to 90 targets and then an additional 20 to 30 rushes as well too. He is a really kind of intermediate player in terms of he's a wide receiver, but he has that running back skill set, like you said, with like a Deebo Samuel was as well too, or you think about maybe like a Curtis Samuel or something like that in that kind of range of players. It's really interesting to me that he went to Jacksonville because I don't know in terms of what their ultimate plans are. Leonard Fournette probably won't be on the team.
They're going to pass the ball, Addison. They're going to pass the ball. Jay Gruden wants to sling it. Leonard Fournette is dead. They're going to throw the ball all day long. That's what Jay Gruden wants to do. And, really, really excited. Laviska, man, his prospect box score scout comps at RotoViz are insane once he got draft capital. Number 1 comp, A.J. Brown. Number 2, Juju Smith-Schuster. Number 3, Michael Thomas. Number 4, DeAndre Hopkins. Those are his top 4, his 4 closest comps on his production, draft capital, athleticism. I couldn't be more excited to get a player like this in the late second. And people are just, I think, a little soured because they didn't get the combine pop from him because of this weird, groin injury that he's dealing with, or pubic bone injury, something weird, not a common injury. But I think it's great because I think had he gone to the combine and competed, you're having to pay late first round pricing for him, but he almost always goes in the second round, even in a 1 QB rookie draft. It has been my experience from what I've seen and from doing these exercises.
Well, hey, I can't argue with the names you just threw out there. So there's really not a whole lot more of analysis I think that you need.
Weird ADP.
That needs to be a t-shirt.
Has weird ADP, everybody.
That needs to be a t-shirt. You just need to put that on a shirt. And that is awesome. Weird ADP. So Laviska Shenault 2.09 to pair with Jalen Reagor. So we're up again 3.09. Brian Edwards, Zach Moss, and Tyler Johnson were the 3 picks to end off the second round. And then it went Joshua Kelly, Antonio Gibson, Anthony McFarland, Darrington Evans, Cole Kmet, Antonio Gandy-Golden, Chase Claypool, and KJ Hamler went 1 pick right before us here. So this is going to be interesting because I'm wanting to see who you pick here. 3.09. The wide receivers here are Devin Duvernay, Van Jefferson, Eno Benjamin is there, LaMichael Pirine, Jordan Love is actually still there as well too, Lynn Bowden, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Adam Troutman, Jacob Eason. These are all these players that are here at this pick. So 3.09, the third pick of this draft with Laviska and Jalen Reagor. Where are we looking at here, Curtis?
Man, this is probably the only way that I'll end up with a share of this player, but falling this far just feels like grabbing positional value for somebody who landed first round draft pedigree. So I'm going to take Jordan Love. I don't really like Jordan Love very much. I don't think that he's a very good player, but I think when we start talking about him taking over that offense, he's going to have a value boost. I would, really enjoy the opportunity to sell him before he ever throws a pass. And so I'm going to take him without, with the full understanding that, I don't really think he's going to be a fantasy asset on my team for the long haul.
What is the earliest that you would take Jordan Love in a Superflex?
I have him ranked 29. So I would take him in the third round. I would not take him in the second round. And I would not take him if Jalen Hurts was still on the board. Even though I think it's probably more likely that Jordan Love starts a full season earlier in his career. I think Green Bay has tipped its hand by trading up and spending a first round pick on this player that, they're at least thinking about moving on from Aaron Rodgers. And, Philadelphia, I think, can take Jalen Hurts under the guise of, our starter is often injured. He hasn't played in the playoffs 3 years in a row. We actually won our Super Bowl with our backup. It's an important position in Philly lore. And he also does some other things. And so I think Philly can defend the pick a little differently than Green Bay. If Green Bay doesn't have a desire to start Jordan Love in the first 2 years of his contract, why'd you do it? The whole reason to draft a rookie quarterback is to win on their rookie deal. That's how the NFL works these days. Once you pay the big money, it just gets harder and harder and harder. And Green Bay is a team that is built to win now. I think they had a really fluky season last year, but certainly one of the best records in the NFL. And the way they're trying to win now, being a run first team and not taking a lot of chances, I think a rookie can run a similar style offense to that. So, all that being said, and getting off the soapbox there a little bit, I think Jalen Hurts is a better player. And I think that when Jalen Hurts starts a game, you will want him in your fantasy lineup, even if it's just a spot start. Carson Wentz goes down week 6 next year. I'm starting Jalen Hurts even without having ever seen him play a game, because I know what he's going to add with his legs in that situation. Jordan Love, I'm going to need to see it before I believe it.
Right. And I just think it's important to talk about, it's not if Jordan Love, gets an opportunity, it's when Jordan Love gets the opportunity, right? Correct. They have to, find the Packers have to justify that pick and find a way to get him on the field, or, like you said, why did they do it? So I think this is a major red flag for Aaron Rodgers owners in dynasty leagues. I think that Jordan Love is just, I don't think he's all that great, but he got the first round draft capital and he's going to have to play. And so that's, at some point, like you said, this is just a value pick here. If you were an Aaron Rodgers dynasty owner, would you prioritize Jordan Love in a Superflex?
No, because I don't want any part of, I don't want any part of a Matt LaFleur captained ship for passing game purposes. That team is going to pound the rock. That's what they started to do last year. They drafted A.J. Dillon in a head scratching move in the second round this year. They're committing to a power football offensive design. I think that they're trying to become, basically the Tennessee Titans of the North. And I'm not interested in the quarterback of that offense, especially one that I don't really believe in from a talent and skill set perspective. I don't think he's very accurate. I'm not prioritizing him. If I'm an Aaron Rodgers owner, I'm trying to capitalize on his brand name status and move on from him while I can. I would trade Aaron Rodgers for Drew Lock straight up if you can find that. Nice. That type of thing. I do think it is time to move on. Aaron Rodgers has actually been kind of a garbage fantasy asset for a couple of years and seems to be scared to play the way that he used to when he was winning leagues for us. So if you own Aaron Rodgers, this is a part of the rookie draft, but really you should go try to sell Aaron Rodgers.
Excellent advice. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. And you called A.J. Dillon's pick head scratching. I think that was that's just an appropriate adjective for the entire Packers draft in general. We'll just move on from there, and we'll just move on to the final pick here, 4.09, the last pick of this draft and of for today. So Lynn Bowden, Van Jefferson, and Eno Benjamin were the last 3 picks of the third. Then it went Devin Duvernay, LaMichael P. Ryan, DJ Dallas, Gabriel Davis, Quintez Cephas, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Adam Troutman went at 4.07, then Devin Asiasi. So Jacob Eason and Gordon are the 3 quarterbacks there. Albert O, Bryson Hopkins, Harrison Bryant, Hunter Bryant, all these tight ends here, Colin Johnson, KJ Hill, Isaiah Hodgins, Thaddeus Moss is down here too. It won't let me scroll any farther down here. So I guess these are the players that we have to pick from.
You don't need to scroll. And I think some of this spyware, I think either DLF has conspired to create this specific draft board, or Fantasy Pros is listening to my phone, through some sort of monitoring background application, because I said in the first mock that right behind Adam Trotman was Jacob Eason, and we'd have to see what happened on the board here. And they take Adam Trotman off the board 2 picks in front of me, and they leave Jacob Eason. And so I'm going to take Jacob Eason here. And this would be a really happy outcome for a Superflex draft here. I got Jalen Reagor, who's one of my primary targets. Laviska Shenault, I think I got at a discount price for a player that's going to have a very desirable role for fantasy purposes early on. And then, I got a coin flip on 2 later round quarterback selections. And so, I'm going to be able to trade one of them for value. I think within the first 24 months of owning them. And, as long as you're not in a shallow league that would force you to cut one of these players, before the season, I'm going to draft them. I'm going to stash them, and I'm going to sell them when the time comes. And, for both of them, they're backing up older quarterbacks that neither team is probably committed to for the long haul. So there's going to be that sell chance. You can feel good about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's another fantastic way to approach the later rounds of your rookie drafts, is to look at players that you might not necessarily, really be, have fallen in love with or really like in general or anything like that. But if they have a good opportunity to sell and get a really good return on investment from, Love and Eason were your picks here. I think that's fantastic advice for a lot of people who would, are approaching these 3rd, 4th, maybe 5th rounds if you're doing all that stuff in your rookie drafts. And, you're sitting there on the clock. You can't really trade it away. So you're kind of looking at a player and you're not really sure where to go. Just try to grab a guy that you think is going to have the opportunity to sell later on, even if it sits on your roster, like you said, for a year, maybe 2 years before they have the opportunity to sell. But if you're able to, flip that 3rd round pick into maybe a future 2nd, or, heaven forbid he actually turns into something actually great, then you have, all the more reason just to have all that more value on your team. So I think that's fantastic advice to offer to a lot of listeners and Dynasty owners out there.
Yeah, who's really good at doing this, Addison, and because I've played so many leagues with him that I've seen him do it, and it's one of the godfathers at DLF, Ryan McDowell. I mean, he's one of the captains of your ship there. I play in so many leagues with him, and I see him do this over and over and over and over. He's always jumping on quarterbacks. I mean, even just the grossest quarterback that's available on the waiver wire in Superflex, he's going to harvest them. And this is really, I'm not even talking about rookie drafts necessarily, but it's just a strategy for Dynasty. Collect those guys, spend that free agent auction budget, on those types of players, your blind bid dollars on those types of players, because you never know when that flip opportunity is going to come. So you start to get a little buzz about a backup quarterback, throw that dart out of there. You might be able to flip them for a future rookie 3rd or something, even if, they're super gross and you never want to play. I guarantee people have traded like Chase Daniel for a real asset at some point. That's what that looks like. But if you play in a deeper league, you can do that. And, I just wanted to shout out to Ryan there in the DLF brand, because that's something I've observed him do time in and time again.
Yeah, absolutely. So this wraps up the show today, Drafting Lessons, both the 2 4-round rookie mocks here. So Curtis, thank you so much for hopping on with me again to do this, as well as the startup one that we did earlier in the year. So if you guys haven't checked out that Dynasty startup, it's fantastic stuff. So there you go, Curtis. He's flashing his RotoViz. And so I'm going to give you the opportunity to go ahead and plug away again. Let the people know where to find you, what you're working on, all that good stuff.
Awesome. Hey, thanks again for having me on, Addison. This is great. I always learn something from looking at these draft boards and seeing what kind of the industry and community consensus is on some of these players. Gives me a reminder of what's happening out there in rookie drafts across really across the whole community. You can find my work if you've never checked me out before at rotoviz.com. So rotoviz.com, we have tons of Dynasty stuff, Dynasty and Debbie. We also do best ball, DFS, season long. So really a comprehensive fantasy football site. We're kind of rooted in tools and data. DLF has a lot of that great stuff too. You'll find some things are similar and some things are a little bit different flavor. So be sure to check us out. My 2 most recent articles will help you smash your next Dynasty startup drafts. And there is some rookie content in there too. So I recently published kind of a 5-round cheat sheet for 1 QB and for SUPERFLEX Dynasty startups. It lays out all the positions on a board. You can see where players are typically falling. And I've highlighted my personal targets, who I think are values based on age and production, that you want to amass as many of these players in those first 5 rounds as you can in either format. I've also named some players you want to avoid and the reason why you want to avoid them. So be sure to check those articles out. They should both be up on the main page as you're watching this segment.
Alrighty, yeah, fantastic stuff always from RotoViz, from Curtis, all the people over there. It's a fantastic site, and honestly, I really wish that there was my biggest wish for all the people out there, the Dynasty owners, is that you're subbed to both DLF and RotoViz. Yeah. I don't think you can have just one or just the other, because they're both fantastic resources, and it's really just about dominating all of your Dynasty leagues. You need to have access to both because it's fantastic stuff. So. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Curtis, thank you so much for coming on and joining me today. All the people on YouTube, please make sure that you subscribe if you are not already for more drafting lessons shows every Tuesday, and as well as all the other great content that we're coming out with. Ryan McDowell and Dan Myler just dropped some ADP show. So they're doing a look at all the ADP every single month that DLF runs. Including all the weird ADP like LaVisca Chenault. The mailbag show, we got some rookie film study coming with Ray Garvin, all the good stuff. So make sure you subscribe, ring that notifications bell, give this video a like, drop a comment down below as well too, to hit up Curtis if you agree or disagree with any of his picks. I don't know if you can disagree with any of them because it was fantastic drafting all the way around. So thank you guys so much for joining us today, and we will catch you guys next week. See ya.